There's no beating around the ivy. The Chicago Cubs are coming off yet another atrocious May. It's the third straight season in which the Cubs lost more games than they won in the month of May, and the second straight season in which they went 10-18 in May. Deja vu, anyone? Obviously, no Cubs fan wants to see this, and many will react the way they shall react. But as the title says, I'm not panicking about this. Am I insane, you might ask? Am I feeling numb about all of this? Or do I just know this team too goddamn well? If you picked all of the above, then congratulations, you solved the dialogue. Now don't get me wrong, I am very annoyed by this stretch of play by the Cubs, especially with the way we have been losing. I mean, just look at yesterday. If umpire Brendan Miller had eyes, or Boy Harris had used even a fraction of his brain, then maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't be making this video right now. But the reality is, the Cubs are 2 games below 500 and have dropped 13 of their last 17. It's tough scenes all around and nobody wants to see this. So why ain't I panicking? Because it's the same shit that they pulled last season. May I remind you that the Cubs last season were 10 games below 500 back in June. The same team that came up just 1 game short of a wildcard spot. The point is, baseball is a 162 game season. It's a game of stretches. The most recent World Series champs, Texas Rangers, had a stretch last season where they went 4-16. Hell, even this season, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the team that arguably started the Cubs' September from hell last year on their way to a World Series appearance, are currently 7 games below 500. Baseball is a long season, and it's why I try not to pay attention to annoying takes I see online, because you're bound to see a lot of them during a 162 game season. However, a valid take right now is that the Cubs are on a very bad slide and need to correct things sooner rather than later, because while I'm not panicking, I am very annoyed. How do you fix this recent stretch, you might ask? Well, let's look at the 2 big issues that have been plaguing the Cubs as of late. The Cubs have had a bullpen problem for years. A bullpen problem that still hasn't gotten fixed. Somehow, it's gotten even worse. The Cubs have had bad bullpens for many years now. However, difference between this year and previous years is that those bullpens at least had a band-aid. 2021 with Craig Kimbrell, 2022 with David Robertson and Keegan Thompson, and 2023 with Adbert Alzolay. In 2024, a band-aid hasn't been found yet, making an already rough bullpen look a whole lot worse. For starters, there's no closers on this team. Alzolay deservedly lost his job as a closer, however, Heart Attack Hector hasn't gotten the job done. And don't let the ERA fool you, the man is playing Russian roulette on the mound out there. I get that he was very good in Houston, but clearly that hasn't translated to his time in the Windy City so far. It's clear he's not cut out for the role currently, but that still leaves us with an unanswered question. Who even should be the Cubs' closer right now? Mark Leiter Jr.? I like Mark, but he's been in a pretty bad slump these past couple of games. Hayden Wesneski? He's been good this season, a bit inconsistent as a reliever, but he would have to be in consideration. Tyson Miller? He's been pretty good since coming over from Seattle, a much-needed addition to the bullpen. However, looking at his career, I get the feeling he's too green to be a closer right now. Now, frankly, the best option for closer would be Ben Brown, especially with the way he throws. It's almost perfect for a reliever in high-tense situations. However, there's just one problem. Ben Brown is an even better starter. After his poetry on the mound performance against the Brewers, I have no doubt he deserves to be in the starting rotation. A starting rotation that's easily been the Cubs' biggest strength this season. With Shota looking great, Assad looking really good, Tylone looking a lot better, and Steele starting to look like Justin Steele again, Brown would no doubt be the missing piece. Especially seeing how Kyle Hendricks will probably be getting taken out back very soon, which Look, I don't want to say anything, just play the damn Family Guy cutaway.
Sorry, Thunder. I gotta put you down.
But to answer the question at closer, fuck it, I don't know. Give Jordan Wicks the role when he comes back. He's got the strikeout pitch to make it happen. Can't be any worse than what we already have at closer. So to sum up the bullpen, it's an indictment on Jed Hoyer that for years, the same damn issues keeps plaguing things. And now, he doesn't have a fall guy in David Ross to take the blame, because not even Craig Counsell has been able to fix this mess of a bullpen. And yes, I am being quite harsh on Jed here, because while there have been some decisions here and there made by Craig that I disagree with, these bullpen issues go as far back as the days of Joe Madden being in the dugout. The band-aids don't fix gun wounds, Jed. Start fixing shit. The most frustrating part of all of this, though, is for as bad as the bullpen has been, that's not even the biggest reason for the recent slump. It never fails seeing the Cubs' backs go on a very cold stretch. Granted, every team has cold stretches in the batter's box, but for the Cubs, it feels like whenever it happens, it's freezing out there. And for this current group of Cubs players, what stands out to me is that nobody has an OPS right now above 800.
That's not what he wanted to cook.
Let's just get to the elephant in the room. Nick Madrigal doesn't belong in Chicago right now. He hasn't panned out, and his defense this season hasn't been close to good enough to justify sending him to die out there in the batter's box. And no, I don't blame him for Willie Harris being more reckless than the average driver with a California license plate. But make no doubt, he's not been close to being good enough. And this is where I do have some criticism for Craig Counsell, because with how his defense hasn't been the same, he shouldn't be out there late in tight games. So what do you do with Nick? Send him down to Iowa where he can keep the seat warm for Matt Shaw, and call up David Bodie. He ain't gonna be a long-term solution, but Bodie, when given the chance, has been very productive. At the very least, much more than Madrigal. He had a strong spring training, and he's been very good in Iowa this season. It's time for the Cubs to give him another shot. While the criticism of Madrigal has been completely justified, he ain't the only Cubs batter deserving of slander right now. Especially these next three. Look, I wasn't expecting Yan Gomes to repeat the performance he had last season, but good lord, I also wasn't expecting him to be this atrocious. 154 batting average and an OPS of 416. He's been rough offensively and defensively, and while Amaya has also been struggling, I can at least excuse the fact that he's young. Gomes doesn't have that excuse. An OPS of 416, especially from Yan Gomes, is inexcusable. And if he doesn't get it turned around, he's going to be learning what DFAs mean real soon. Dansby Swanson has been the biggest disappointment so far, barely batting above the Mendoza line, with a 600 OPS and his usual great defense not being all that. Dansby has been known to go cold during the season, so I'm not that surprised. However, what's concerning is that there hasn't been a point so far this season where he felt hot to begin with. And that's really concerning, because unlike Madrigal and Gomes, there ain't a better alternative right now at shortstop. Dansby needs to get his shit together. And on the topic of players I expect to get things together, but I really need to see them do it, Christopher Morel does lead the team in home runs, but outside of that, it's not been smooth sailing. Right on the dot of the Mendoza line and an OPS of 685, it's very clear that Morel has taken a step back. And when you consider that his backup in Madrigal has already been pretty shitty, this only makes the third base situation a whole lot worse. Like Dansby, I expect him to get things turned around, but expecting and actually seeing it are two much different things. When Morel does well, the Cubs are a whole lot more fun to watch. So please, get things turned around, Christopher. And then we have the logjam that is the outfield. Look, there's no denying the Cubs have arguably the most loaded outfield prospect pool in baseball. It's a loaded prospect pool the Cubs aren't using to their full potential. With PCA being called up again, we've seen Cody get moved back to first base, which is the correct move. Issue is, you have another guy who's proven he's ready for the majors in Alexander Canario. He's already shown that he deserves to be in Chicago in my opinion. Which then begs the question, who do you move? Because you're probably going to have to trade one of your outfielders. Because with the way the roster is, you're going to have to do it so you can get Canario up. You're obviously not moving Bellinger, and Seiya's ceiling is higher than the two who I'd say are in the most danger here. Mike Tauchman and Ian Happ. Tauchman has no doubt been the better batter this season, and while Happ has been a bright spot during this very cold stretch, it might not be enough. Tauchman has shown before he can be a quality defender, which is important because Ian Happ is the better defender here. He's a Gold Glover for a reason. But if Tauchman can keep the offense up and Ian Happ fails to keep it up, it could make the decision a lot easier here. There's a reason though I picked this topic for last, because going forward, the Cubs are going to need to utilize the youth. You have one of the best farm systems in baseball. Fucking use it. A guy like Canario has shown he deserves to be in the majors, and if that means you have to trade one of the regulars, then so be it. The farm system is what pushed the Cubs towards the top the first time. Embrace it again. So yeah, I know this video kind of went from me explaining why I'm not acting like the season is going to hell to fiercely explaining what moves the Cubs need to make, but to be honest, that's kind of the point of this video. I'm not panicking about the Cubs because I know how this team works. They have really cold stretches in May before getting their shit together around the All-Star break. When it happens once, it's just a bad month. When it happens twice, that's a coincidence. But if it happens 3 times, that's a trend. And I see how this team trends. However, I also see what's wrong with this team and what needs to be done about it to ensure that I'm not having to make another video at the start of July. I have faith the Cubs will get things turned around, but I really want to see it happen. Because words are just words, and the only thing that matters at the end of the day is results.